Hi, welcome back to Build to Fish. Today we're going to be doing a finish coat over our thread wraps here that looks like everything's ready. Usually if you're going to do a color seal or extra color seal, you would have done that and then let it sit for a few hours before you apply any finish. But since this thread here is already color locked, it looks real good. Shouldn't have much bleed through on it. A couple different brushes. Both of them will work just fine. If I'm going to do a one coat finish, I probably would just go with this one, which we'll do today, one coat. If I were going to do a two coat finish, then I would use my purple brush here for that. And if I'm doing a fly rod or a smaller guide foot, I might use a little bit less than this yellow. These are FlexCoat brushes. We have FlexCoat High Build and Low Build. The light I would use for the single thin coat, and then come back with the high build for my second coat. But today we're just going to do a one coat finish. I'll use the high build. We like to do, let's go ahead and tip this back until it fills, and then draw it right out. It's a pretty handy way of doing it. It's always good to do at least 2 cc's of each. Obviously I won't need that much for these little wraps here, but I will do 2 cc's of each. And I always like to draw them one each here before I start my mixing process, so I know my measurement's exactly the same. These aren't very friendly if you're off measurement wise, so you want to use equal parts of the thread finish. So we go ahead and draw that out, pull it out. We got our mixing cup here. And then equal parts, 50-50, both match here. And I just, out of habit, just kind of do a little bit of each one. Tends to mix better for me. Make sure you put these back in the same bottles, and those go away. So I use the back of my brushes to stir with. As long as they're not dirty or filthy or what have you, nice and clean. You need to just tilt this slightly if you want. You don't want to mix it really fast. Just kind of slowly rotate it. Try not to bring the brush or the stirring stick out of the thread finish. Otherwise you create more bubbles than you really want to deal with. And do this for about 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes. I do time mine, not necessary, but I do time it. Okay, so after about 2 minutes, you'll notice that it gets really clear. It does thin out a little bit because it's not completely set up. Once it starts to set up on you and gets tacky, you'll need to stop and remix and do another batch. Typically, you have about 5 minutes or so before you get to that point. We'll pull our brush out. You might have a few bubbles in there. It's okay. I do like to get most of them out if possible. We have a nice little tool called a bubble buster. We'll go ahead and light that. And there's just a few in there. And we'll just go ahead and just shoot it a couple times. Get rid of most of them. Not really necessary. You can go ahead and bubble bust when it's on your wraps. Okay, so we have the ALPS drying machine, wrap machine. So the belt pulley goes over to the drying motor, and we switch it to dry. And it gives you a nice slow turn, which will help the thread finish level properly. You can apply it at this speed. Just takes a little bit more time, as well as keeping your line straight. It's a little more difficult than a high throttle. I'll do both. For the first one here, we'll just do the regular drying speed. It does have 3 different speeds. So we'll go ahead and grab our brush. Get it loaded up. And I like to keep my brush tilted up. And go ahead and apply. I try to cut the line, the edge, just straight on the thread. You can do it in one turn or two. And then go ahead and brush it over. With the one coat finish, you really got to lay it on there. You got to make sure you got plenty. That way you get full cover. You'll have to go back sometimes, but just brush it right back over. Same on this side, just get right up on the edge of that thread. If your brush tends to lean this way, you're actually taking it off. If you hold it straight up or angle it just slightly, it won't take it off as well, and it'll give you plenty to work with. Again, you can always take the thread finish off while it's still uncured. So I always like to put a lot on, and then if I have to take it off, it's easier to take off than it is to keep adding to it. So I just helped it a little bit self-level. It will self-level all by itself. I think it says it on the bottle, self-leveling. But if you get it kind of awkward in spots, it will try to, lift up on one side or the other. But for the most part, a one coat finish, if you put enough on there, you have good coverage. It'll all kind of pull to the middle and almost make a small football finish, which is nice. So that's a one coat finish. Again, it looks a little wavy. It'll eventually level itself out for the most part. I do tend to grab my bubble buster and just give it a couple of hits. This will also help level it a little bit too. Just thins it down by heating it up. You don't want to use too much heat. You could smoke your threads, as well as it could drip the finish off or burn the fishing rod itself. So we'll let that spin around. I do come back in 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes or so, see if there's any bubbles coming out underneath the tunnels of the feet. It's just air that's trapped working its way out as the thread finish penetrates through. Not a big deal. It's nice to take this little bubble buster and just hit them a couple times, or if you have a thread pick or something, you can poke it. And then you can also come back and add some more thread finish to the spots on top of the guide feet, and maybe some more in the tunnels if you need to. Okay, so we're going to come over here to this double foot, and just a little other switch to the machine here. We're going to turn it off. We're going to take the pulley, put it over the wrap motor. There's two ways to do this. You can use turn it to wrap, you can use your foot pedal if you want to, and get your speed the way you like it. Or you can just tape the pedal down also if you want to. If you're going to do your whole rod, you can just tape the pedal down. That way you don't have to have your foot on it the whole time. So we'll go ahead and do that. You can use the same brush. We're doing a one coat finish. A lot quicker process with the motor. And then we'll just turn it off, take the belt, put it back to the drying motor machine, click it to dry, get a nice slow rotation, then you can just come back and add I like to get the tunnels. The double foot, I definitely like to hit right on top there, and that where the two guide feet there come together. There's that slight gap. I like to get a little bit in there. Just helps from water getting in there and doing any rust or what have you. Again, we're going to get the tunnels in there. Just kind of level it out a little bit, just help it. So we're going to go ahead and let this go ahead and level a little bit. We're going to use our bubble buster, take care of any bubbles that might be in there. Just a little bit here and there. Nothing major. You don't want to cook the rod, burn your threads. And we'll allow that to sit for 4 or 5 minutes or what have you. Come back, add some more finish coat. Come back here, it's been a few minutes. This one's leveled out pretty nicely. Just going to hit it one more time, make sure there's no leftover bubbles sitting around. Okay, so it's been sitting for 4 or 5 minutes now. Take a look, things are leveling nicely. Might have to add a little bit here or there, which is okay because our thread finish hasn't completely set up yet. It's part of the process. I'm looking in the tunnels of the guide feet, looking for air coming out from underneath there. It'll be a bubble underneath the feet. You can turn this off. There's a little one coming out from underneath this. And eventually it'll make its way out, and then sometimes they pop. And if you're doing a 2-coat finish, not a big deal, but 1-coat finish, you want to make sure you get those as best as possible. So we're just going to take our bubble buster torch here, and we're just going to hit it a couple times there. There it goes. And then you can see the pocket it left. And the thread finish will backfill again, which is nice about the bubble buster. We're just going to hit it around here, see if there's any more. Okay, we'll go ahead and turn this back on a little bit. And you can tell as soon as I turned it off, it wanted to ball up in the middle, create that football. So you got to make sure you turn it. Don't leave it sit too long. It'll drip off and then you're back to the process. So I'm going to turn this off again. I'm going to add a little bit on the tip of the guide foot here. Okay, it looks pretty good there. We're going to go ahead and rotate it again, and it'll start self-leveling again as we go. Come back to this double foot. Again, we're going to look for any bubbles coming out underneath the tunnels here on the edge of the guide feet. These ones look great. Little one right here in between. I'll go ahead and hit that. There it goes. With a nice little tunnel there. It'll backfill. I like to keep the room usually around 70 degrees. Needs to be dry. If it's raining out, don't have your window open. The moisture might cause some reaction to the thread finish. If you do see your thread finish pull away or fisheye, that's usually from a contaminant. Don't eat smoked salmon. We're in the Pacific Northwest. Don't eat smoked salmon when you're wrapping the oil. Don't eat potato chips when you're wrapping. All those things will cause contamination and your thread finish will just pull away. And in some cases won't harden, especially humidity. It'll want to create a fog to it. Pretty sensitive glue, but for the most part, it's pretty user-friendly. Okay, here we are with our finish coat, the 1-coat finish with high build on the single foot and the double foot with slow drying machine motor and high throttle motor. Both do the job. One's a little bit faster than the other. And we'll let this rotate for, I don't know, maybe 6 hours or less, somewhere around there, just to be safe. And 24 hours, it should be really hard for you. And thank you for watching. Come visit us on more social media for next videos. Thanks.